Hello, excellent people. This is Exalin. I apologize if I sound like crap. It's 2 in the morning. Either way. So, one of the things I'm seeing the most that I just kind of want to briefly talk about is customizing Kirito as your character versus just having an actual avatar. And kind of the pros and cons for each. This is going to be a little bit rambly, so if more than normal, because it's been a good while since I've done something like this, so, you know, you've been forewarned. So let's start with the pros. I want to say, I do personally think that having just Kirito be customizable, and having the game still treat you like Kirito, but you can change his name and everything for, like, multiplayer and all that, is the better system. The reason I think this is because it allows the narrative to move forward without having to put in something alien. Something that doesn't belong there, something that just doesn't fit. And yes, I'm pointing a giant finger at Fatal Bullet when I make that comparison, but I'll get there. A good example of this is obviously just by looking at the Hollow games. And I'll talk about the first 4 games, honestly, over the course of this. But in Hollow Fragment, for example, which is the one most people started with, I'd like to say, you know, it's exactly that. You customize Kirito, but the game still treats you like Kirito. Never do I think it, like, most of the characters will say his name and everything. And, you know, it progresses like this. But that one had a much... I honestly think Hollow Fragment had the best multiplayer system, more or less, overall. Hollow Realization made a couple improvements. Honestly, if we could get a mesh of both, I think that'd be the ideal, but I'm not going to go into that here. Either way, so, you know, you had options, and you customized him, and then you took him on multiplayer and all of that, and then you spent a lot of time in the Hollow area, which was a big meat of the game. But then you'd still have the other floors. And I don't really have an argument for this one in particular. That's just how the game worked. There was, at the time, since it was the first, there was no real way to see any argument for whether if it was a good system or a bad system, per se. And then, you know, Lost Song introduced a separate customizable character that you could make, but it wasn't fleshed out at all. It was just kind of... there. It didn't do anything. Like, you were gender locked between certain species. You only had like 3 hair types and weapons and everything. It just wasn't super great. And then you get to Realization, where not only did they let you change your player name, on top of, you know, having all the other customizations and everything, they expanded upon it greatly. You had way more hairstyles. As the game progressed, eventually you were able to straight up use the voices of the main characters to create characters. Like, let's see, I think if you go back to 46, yeah, there's Yu-Gi-Oh's hair, and then since you can visualize his armor and his voice is now in here, you could just legitimately make Yu-Gi-Oh and play as Yu-Gi-Oh. And they let you do that. And that was a lot of fun. On top of that, if you were to go into the options menu, if you really didn't want the game to necessarily treat you as Kirito, or at least pretend it doesn't, you can even turn off Kirito's voice when he's speaking in the cutscenes. Which was definitely interesting. Unfortunately, the cutscenes themselves, like the actual CGI motion capture ones that look gorgeous, by the way, it's still Kirito. You can't do anything about that. And if you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you, because, once again, I do think that the games have a much better pace. Excuse me, I'm, like, super sick as well. Than Fatal Bullet. And it's no secret that I'm not a big fan of Fatal Bullet. I am a little bit more fond of it now than I was when it came out. And I do legitimately think that the post-game is infinitely better than the rest of the game in its entirety. Oh boy, dimps. We're not going into that. Either way, the avatar in Fatal Bullet honestly was one of my biggest problems. on his own, like, I don't think he's too much of an issue, but it puts so much emphasis on this character in ways that, look, I know SAO gets a lot of crap for being, like, the ultimate power fantasy and just, yeah, kind of being not super well written, but the games are still pretty good, and I think Fatal Bullet caters more into what people accuse it of being, especially with that avatar. Everybody likes you. Everybody likes you. I don't think you technically have one single enemy in Fatal Bullet. Even Itsuki, spoiler alert for the later DLCs and story stuff, goes through a small redemption arc. And, oh my goodness, there's no real villain. It almost has kind of a Sonic Forces avatar thing where everybody wants to be your friend and you're the greatest. And I don't want to blow it out of proportion, obviously, because there are some interesting things that come out of it. The Arphasis is an interesting concept, and I do like that. But if we're going... Here's where I'm actually going to talk about that narrative. Again, I've been rambling around everything, and if you're still here, oh my gosh, thank you. But, for example, there's an event that you can trigger with the Avatar and Philia. And on top of that, real quick, side note, another thing, Fatal Bullet. Did you just forget that, like, it was an alternate timeline till, like, 95% through the game? Anyway, there's a scene in Fatal Bullet with Philia where you're going on a quest with her where the game makes you fight your doppelganger for everybody involved. And this causes Philia to have a little bit of PTSD, which is, if you've played Hollow Fragment all the way through its the Hollow Area arc, you should know why. Philia ends up killing her own copied data and kind of goes through an identity crisis, like she stops being able to tell if she's real or if she was the Hollow data she killed. And if you don't know what any of that means, I'm not going to go into it right now. Anyway, she has this PTSD and kind of breaks down a little bit, and our good boy, the Avatar, is just there to help, and he helps her through it. And you could argue, dude, what's the point? It's a video game, and yeah, sure, I mean, but the thing is, like, the way they play it off as if it was, like, this thing that he understands and is able to help her through. No, dude, that should have been Kirito there, who, you know, was with this character the entire time in that Hollow thing, man. Like, it's just, and, oh man, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to get overly heated. Ask anybody who knows me personally. Not that you could. I apologize for, this is just how I am on you. Anyway, and they'll tell you how much this whole scene pisses me off. But, I mean, that's just one example. Again, the Avatar, I think, is at his best when you are involved with, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher their names because I really was not invested at all. Kohira. I think the only one I actually remembered how to pronounce is Itsuki. And then Zeliska, is that her name? I apologize to any major Fatal Bullet fans out there. Like, if you like the game, power to you. There are some things about it I do genuinely like, but, whew, I mean, so when the Avatar is being involved with those characters that were made to interact with the Avatar, it plays really well. Like, it's a pretty good dynamic, you know, for an insert character with the most babyface of babyface. It also doesn't help that I'm just not a big fan of silent protagonists, but that's an entirely different nut to crack. But, like, on top of that, your Avatar, the way they kind of force everybody down your throat, per se, like, you have to interact with Kirito's group. And so, and even then, they don't really do anything. And ultimately, I think, again, these games run on an alternate timeline. And it definitely hurts that I think Dimps, who developed Fatal Bullet, kind of didn't know. At least it feels like they didn't know. Until, like, 75% of the way through production, somebody must have, like, popped their head through the office door and been like, hey, did you guys know that, like, the entire canon is different in the games? And then somebody spat out their coffee and they had to freakishly put everything back together in a way that makes sense. And that definitely rears its head a lot more during the death gun segment and the true ending stuff. Because, the death gun stuff, I was actually really excited for this before Fatal Bullet came out. I was so hype. And then it was basically exactly how it was. No, it was exactly how it was in the anime. The motion capture cutscenes that I've been praising the whole time that look gorgeous throughout all 4 games, it was literally just the shot from the show, just slightly tweaked. Your avatar wasn't even involved, despite how much emphasis they put on him. And while it was cool to see that scene animated there, it didn't change anything. Not to mention the entire death gun segment was kill a dude, move on to the next fight. Kill a dude, move on to the next fight. Kill a dude, move on to the next fight. Death gun, take half his health bar, cutscene, health bar's full. Fight him again, take a bit of his health bar, cutscene, health bar's full. Now completely kill him. And boom, there you go. Cut, you know, you won. You killed Death Gun. And, I mean, compare that to Genesis, if you've played both Fatal Bullet and Realization, where the gimmick of Genesis is that he's taking that digital drug that's enhancing his powers, and his sword skills get longer and bigger and have more status effects and a wider range. That's freaking scary in concept of the gameplay, and it actually does something unique with said gameplay for that one boss fight to exemplify what that is. The Death Gun fight has none of that. It's literally just the game's mechanics through and through, which I guess is fine, but eh? And then back to the other point of, like, your avatar just being loved by everybody. If you don't know the true ending requirements for the game, you need to max out affinity, not with everybody, but a good chunk of the characters. I can't remember everybody off the top of my head, but it is most of Kirito's friends need to have level 4 affinity and then 75% towards the next level. And that's a lot of work, and I think Dimps even realized that, because later down the road, the game got updates that just kind of let you buy things from Argo that speed up that process so much. And on top of that, why would you design a boss fight where you've made all the prerequisites for the true ending, but you screw up just ever so slightly, and you get hit by one attack, and you still have to go through the bad ending because you got hit by an attack? Oh my gosh. Though I'm not here to really go into all the bad game design that Fatal Bullet has. Anyway, so that brings us to the last topic here with Alicization Lycoris. Because with a lot of the news and stuff that's been out recently, you know, they just showed off the character customization, and it looks like multiplayer's back to a more field roaming style of HF and HR. And I know I'm personally super excited for that. But the biggest question people have right now is whether that's a separate thing or whether or not it will be like HF and HR, where all of the skills you learn in single player, you know, your skill list, everything, like I just learned Crisis Crescendo and Vorpal Strike and the Single Sword and Star Splash and Rapier. Freaking I got Soaring Slash EX skill unlocked and got Zeku. Will I have those in multiplayer? I'm going to assume yes. Like, I honestly cannot see them changing the system. Alicization Lycoris is being developed by Aquaria, which are the people who made the Hollow games. A lot of people don't know that there was actually one game before Hollow Fragment called Infinity Moment. That was on the PSP. And it's worse Hollow Fragment, if my understanding is correct. So, Aquaria has done literally nothing but improve. You go from Infinity Moment, which honestly kind of looks like a mobile game, with the way it handles its camera, to Hollow Fragment, then to Hollow Realization, and then you kind of have a step back with Hollow Fragment, mainly due to changing the sword skills to a cooldown and not an SP system. But they have done nothing improve. And I don't know the exact time frame, but we can assume they've been working on Alicization since at least late 2017, which puts roughly 3 years in that development, which is more than the other two games had. So I will be shocked if it's a bad game, and I've actually taken a bet on if it ends up being something I hate. Hopefully I'm wrong, because I don't want to eat that bet. But, you know, I think I'm mostly done here. Thank you, again, if you're still here listening to my stupid voice. But, so yeah, I'm excited, because from my perspective, as somebody who's put so many hours into all of these, I do legitimately think that it will be back to the system that you're looking at right here, where you customize Kirito, but you're still playing as Kirito. Your skills will likely pull into multiplayer, so on and so forth. If I had to give one critique for the new character customization, it's the eyes are still... face type is still a thing. Fatal Bullet introduced face type, and the face just accounts for your eyes, facial structure, and your mouth. No, don't do that. Eyes need to be separate, dude. Because, like, I'm not going to go into it. At least Fatal Bullet baby face is gone. Where you're either baby man or grizzled veteran. Either way, I don't know. If you're still here, again, thank you. Leave your opinions, comments, or, you know, hate in the comments. Keep it real and keep it weird. Exalin out, guys.